Welcome to another episode of Mowing After Dark here on the College Football Mafia Network. I am, of course, your host, Moen, joined by my co host of CFB Express fame, the one, the only, Rock and Rant. How are you doing tonight, Rock?
I am doing good. I got some protection from SEC propaganda. I sprayed it on. It feels good. It probably won't matter, but no, it was an interesting weekend. It's always interesting, right? We got two. We For some people, you got 2 weeks left in your season. For others, you got like 3 to 5, and some lucky guys out there will have like 8 weeks left, right? Give or
Yeah,
take.
8 weeks. Yeah, definitely. Watched a lot of football this weekend. Didn't win a damn dime.
Me
Uh,
either.
thank you, thank you, Ole Miss, for losing by a half a point on that. That would have at least wouldn't have broke me even, but it would have made me feel at least a little bit better about myself. So thank you, Lane. Much appreciated, Joey Freshwater. Um, I really spent a lot of time on the phone this weekend with this Big Ten Capital deal, talking to people, and I don't know. I don't know. It's been an interesting. I think the Grateful Dead put it best when they said, "What a long, strange trip it's been."
Well, when you say I don't know, what do you mean by that? Like, obviously, with the groundwork is 16 against 2,
The
USC,
16 are going to
Michigan.
vote yes on it.
Yes, but they're 16 against 2. Is it, I don't know about whether the implications for Michigan and USC long term Big Ten are actually impacted by this, or like, what is the I don't know about, I guess?
I it, the I don't know is more or less I don't know if USC and Michigan are going to be on board by Friday. They're
Okay.
going to probably end up on board at some point, but is it by Friday? Um, and that's the thing. I mean, they're going to get money held back from them. If Big Ten Enterprise, listen, let's say they go long term and Big Ten Enterprises is a massive success. They're losing out on boatloads of revenue. That revenue is not going to be kept in an escrow account for them. That's only going
So
to get
that's
distributed to
So that has been discussed out there, though, right? That there was going to be an escrow account. Now, is that just an escrow account for the first six
the
months, and then after
infusion.
that,
From my understanding, it was the infusion,
right? And then you
and
wouldn't get
the
anything.
additional above and beyond they would make percentage wise under the new rates. But Big Ten Enterprises, any dividends that come out of Big Ten Enterprises, they would not get because they're not signed on to Big Ten Enterprises. It would just be the 16 schools. So let's say Big Ten Enterprises signs a $1 billion deal for jersey patches for those 16 teams. The UC pension fund would get money for it, and those 16 teams would be able to divide up the rest of it. So,
Right.
um,
And so I would assume that at a certain point, maybe it's after the 6 months that they have, that what is it? From what I read, the 10.5% of shares that those were going to be allocated would be redistributed proportionally among the 16 members and the investor. Is that essentially it?
potentially, but I don't know all the ins and outs. I know USC obviously wants to be number one or in the first tier. I've also heard that USC maybe wants to absolutely reset the tiers. I think right now it's 4 tiers. They want to reset it to 2 tiers with one tier at the top making even more money than the top tier makes now. Um, because they're USC, I guess, and they haven't won anything in 20 years, and why not? But you know, it. And then Michigan's got a banker. Now Michigan has a banker involved. So I don't know if that's political capital for them to say, "Hey, our banker looked at it. It's kosher. We'll go ahead and sign on." Uh, or Jordan Acker decides he's running for Senate or running for governor or whatever he's running for. So, but I talked to somebody on from the West Coast this weekend and kind of had a back and forth and exchanged information. And from what I'm understanding, hey man, Ohio State is gung ho. We're going for this. We're signing on. Um, we're drinking what we're poured, we're eating what we're served, and the other 16 schools are with us. So I don't think a lot of people understand why the Big Ten is doing this, but um, it's a leverage move. It really is a leverage move.
Well, I look, I am half paying attention to it, so you can correct me where I'm wrong, but I think that the framing is what is throwing people off, right? Because everybody was talking about private equity and people think of private equity in a certain way. Basically, 16 teams are starting a new company, right?
Yes.
To monetize their rights, and they're all based off of whatever value they brought as investors. They're investing, and they're going to have X amount percent ownership, like you bought stock in a damn company,
Yep.
and the collective 16 or 18 have way more shares than the main investor who's putting all the money in, the 2.4 billion. They're getting 5.5% or 5% or 4% equity or 4.5%, whatever that number is, for investing zero other than their presence. The other guy is the biggest minority owner, right? But all of the others can outvote them at any time. Like that's essentially what's going on,
Right.
and it's
And there's
being
still
spun
there's
incorrectly.
yes, there's still governance issues that have to be gone over with the Big Ten enterprises and how they're going to run that. But at the end of the day, this is getting passed by Friday. It's getting passed with 16 teams, or USC and Michigan are going to come on board at the terms that had already been agreed to. Um, I USC to me, they just don't have the leverage. Once they decided that 2.4 billion was going to stay 2.4 billion, I think USC and Michigan both lost all their leverage. That's why I said Michigan brought that banker in to go over it and take a look. I think that banker is giving them political leeway to say, okay, we did our due diligence as Michigan men, and
Right.
we looked it over, and we're on board with this. USC, I don't think USC has an escape clause other than just accepting it.
Or not, and
So
they just never do it, and they do their own deals, and they find out, and you guys have to then figure out,
they don't in 2036. They can leave the
right,
conference.
and you guys can elect to, they can agree to extend a grant of rights, not to the media deal, but to the conference for longer, just without being part of this separate entity that you guys have created, and you guys, the Big Ten teams, schools can decide whether that continues or not, right? Right, well, you and I can be in business together in this world and decide not to be in business together in the other world, but ultimately by 2036 we can all decide we don't want to be in business together that way, or you still want to be in business together with us in the first way, and we don't want you around anymore, which would be give you guys 10
Well,
years worth of content on the College Football Mafia channel.
the big thing on this is the grant of rights. They want that grant of rights extended to 2046. They don't want to leave any doubt that the ACC, the Magnificent Seven, they brought that up. They don't want to leave any doubt. The Big Ten's going to be here till 2046. Like it or
Yeah.
lump it, they're going to be there. I'm sure if the SEC gets involved in their private equity deal, they're going to have to extend their grant of rights out as well, as would the ACC, as would the Big 12. Nobody's going to jump on board if they don't know that you're committed for a long-term situation. So, but there you go. There's all I have for you on the public capital, excuse me, the public investment capital deal with the Big Ten. We're going to have a vote by Friday. So tune in next week on the Big Freaking Friday show. Should be some fireworks. But yeah, definitely. Let's talk a little bit about what happened yesterday in college football. Alabama tumbles to Oklahoma.
Alabama, like one time I wanted you to win. Just like one time I wanted you to win. And you couldn't do it. Like you just couldn't do it. You couldn't do it.
Likewise, I had Alabama in a parlay.
My entire season for my team probably rode on your ability to win at home against Oklahoma. But apparently Oklahoma has pictures on you or something, man. Because they are 2 for 2 against you when you, in theory, were the better team on paper favored, whatever. But congratulations to Oklahoma. Huge win. Most likely locked your playoff options in. You got lucky in the sense of, hey, Missouri and LSU, the beginning of the season, were much more challenging foes in theory, but Missouri had a big injury to their quarterback, and we all know the LSU story. So Oklahoma's looking pretty damn solid, so congrats to them for doing it. And look, Alabama is still in a great position based off of where they stand within the conference. You know, they fell about in the AP poll, at least where I thought, but damn, man, you couldn't win this one time when I actually rooted for you.
And the second game that I thought was the most important or most entertaining anyway was Texas A&M down 30-3 at halftime against South Carolina, comes back to win by 1. South Carolina just could not get it closed at all in the second half against Texas A&M. Mike Elko just got a 6-year contract extension. Oh boy, I thought he was going to get that extension curse. He did not. He pulled it out. But Texas A&M showed some vulnerability, I think, for the first time this season.
Look, the only school that has not shown vulnerability at this point is your school, Ohio State. Really, if we're looking,
and we haven't really played beyond Texas,
right? You know, and that game was weird. It's first game, but actually, it counts the same, except for if it's college football playoff committee. Apparently, recency bias and all. But Ohio State, outside of that, is the only one that hasn't shown it. Indiana's had a couple of challenging games that you didn't necessarily expect in different forms with Iowa and Penn State. And Texas A&M has now had their moment. Actually, Texas A&M has had a couple of other moments, Moen. If you go back to the Arkansas game, but this was clearly, definitively like crazy. I think I caught one of the various ESPN college football podcasts, and I'm going to botch the number, but only slightly. Since 2014, if you were in the SEC and you were up 27 points in your game, you were 286 or 276 and 0 until South Carolina pulled off that magical journey.
Absolutely. Let's say hello to some people that came into the chat. Appreciate everybody for showing up here on a Sunday on Mowing After Dark. I do appreciate it very much. The Big Lubbock was actually first this time. Congratulations, Big Lubbock. Maybe go buy a lottery ticket, Big Lubbock. Buckshot Kid says, oh, hey, Moen. Mosito is third. We will see you this Saturday, Mosito, in the Horseshoe. Good luck. Rock and Rant says, yo, Daniel Gygax. Just the facts with Daniel Gygax. He is here. He is on fire in our Pick'em segment. Absolutely on fire. I don't think he can get caught at this point. He is the Ohio State of our Pick'em. Daniel, I don't know if you did the math. You went 8-2 this week, dude.
Wow.
And I don't think anybody else crossed 500. So, congrats.
And West Virginia, has lost some games, but there's some life there from what you're seeing with West Virginia. If you want to have bad, good losses or whatever you want to call them, from an outsider's point of view, maybe there's some good hope for next year with what Rich Rod's been trying to get built over the course of a season, even if the results don't show up in the standings yet.
Yeah, they're not quitting on him, which is always good. Mick Stevens is here. He says, go Frogs.
I said the same thing last night, bro. Couldn't help me out either.
Yeah, unfortunately, that did not go very well.
It went awesome if you're a BYU fan.
Well, that's true. Caleb Ramirez is here. He says, hi, all. Good to see you, Caleb. How you doing, sir? Sean says, hi, guys. Good to see you, Sean. Hey, all. Big Hokie news, probably bringing up. James Franklin is in early talks with Virginia Tech to become their next head coach. But again, ESPN classified that as very early talks. So we'll see. You got to think Auburn's going to be out there, and
I think Auburn is likely going to get Mr. Tulane. Most likely, that's what it feels like from reports. I think James Franklin would be a great fit at Virginia Tech. I guess we should put it in the phase of he kind of has his eye on a girl, but he's looking to see if he can trade up first which is why the talks aren't done, because this deal would be done if Virginia Tech had their way.
He's got
I
one
think
on the
it's
back burner.
yeah, he's waiting to see what else happens, but I think that he might just be lucky winding up in probably the right place for him, which I think Virginia Tech would be a great place for him to land and a great stabilizer for Virginia Tech as a program.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. But there's going to be other options out there, and there's going to be competitive options. UCLA needs a new coach. Auburn, we've talked about. LSU,
Arkansas.
although I don't think anybody wants the LSU job other than John Gruden. If Texas Tech and BYU voted no on private capital, why do Big Ten schools need it? Well, ours isn't private capital. Ours is public capital. It's public investment. Why do the Big Ten schools need it? Again, stability and leverage. And I hate to say that, and it may seem cruel or calculated, but a Big Ten with a grant of rights through 2046 has a lot more leverage over potential expansion candidates. Hey, Rock, you should be able to rest your starters next Saturday.
Hey, Chris, I appreciate those positive vibes, though I think it might be a reverse kind of thing. Miami heading into Blacksburg forever in my life based off of previous PTSD. Granted, it's not a Thursday night. I will hope that the Miami showed up to play NC State shows up, and not this Miami that would figure out a way to look past it when they have no room for error. But either way, it's always great to have the Virginia Tech Miami game happening.
Tawtown Hawk's in the chat. Hey, Tawtown Hawk. Withholding revenue will likely damage relations irreparably. It might, but this is a situation that's been going on for the better part of 2.5 years. Only to get to the finish line and then suddenly people throwing their hands up. Laura Weiss says, "Hey y'all, good to see you, Laura. Texas Tech Red Raider. I think Texas Tech goes up to number 5 this week. What do you think?" You're muted.
Yes, I think that they're going to number 5 as well.
Okay. Question: how does a new entity avoid being classified as a for-profit organization? Above my pay grade, but I would assume it's probably because it's part of the UC pension fund. And
I don't know if it is not. I think it is a profit. It's just it's a separate entity that these other guys have a share.
Yeah,
I don't think it's
above my pay grade, man.
I don't think it's considered to be a nonprofit. I could be wrong. I'll give you an example. ChatGPT is like a public good corporation. It's not for profit, but they have just recently announced that they're creating a for-profit other entity. There's probably some people who are better business lawyers in here than I on that, but that's my understanding. Is I don't necessarily, or maybe it's not a complete, nonprofit, but there are a couple of versions in between a pure big ass company, S corp, whatever you want to call it, and being a charity.
Grayson Ganoush, what do you guys think about the situation at Baylor with their athletic director? What the actual F is going on in Waco? I think it was handled right. You can't go putting your hands on players and yelling at players. It's not even something athletic director shouldn't even be on the field with players. That's not what an athletic director does.
But it's my understanding they're not the reason why this all went down. There were definitely reports that there was a second and maybe became exposed because of that first incident, but there was a second investigation going on that is not about the player incident that has become revealed either concurrently or subsequent to that. All they've said is that it is not a Title IX thing, but it was against some sort of, the Baylor's code, their morality, but who the hell knows? But to be clear, there's definitely a second thing involving this Baylor athletic director from the reports that broke this week. And the person in charge of the college football playoff committee having to quit is so college football.
It is. It's just one of
It's
those
so
things. But
college football
obviously,
2025.
if an athletic director is going to be on the sidelines, grab a kid and scream at him over the color of a shirt he is wearing, um, obviously the guy does not have good judgment.
Right.
Um, so
And
I'm not
then
shocked about a second investigation.
just because, and I'm not impugning anybody, but just because it's college football, and the Big 12 absolutely should have had another person take his place on the college football committee. Couldn't we have theoretically not put the Utah person on right now, whose team is in the mix? And I realize they step out of the room when their team's being discussed. But there's like 13 other schools from the Big 12 who probably, and half of them probably have a very competent, at minimum, athletic director. Just optically, it would have just been great. I'm not saying he's anything nefarious is going to go on, but between bad refereeing and shady deals and backroom stuff, like, could we just get our shit together, college football? It's like the best
Never.
sport in the world, managed by the biggest idiots on the planet.
Numbskull News says Texas is done for. I'm not counting anybody out. Not counting anybody out. I'm not even counting Miami out, even though Rock is counting Miami out.
Texas would be done for if they were in the Big 12. A three-loss Texas team in the Big 12 would be done for.
Sure.
But because it just means more, even if you look at the metrics, I'm not counting Texas out because I'm just not. I have no faith.
Quality losses is the important thing. Well, the SEC is the deepest conference. Win or lose, it's always proven. Well, the last two playoffs, they've lost a little more than they've won.
Yeah, and also like half the conference is 6-1 or 6-2, and half the conference is 1-6 and 2-6.
Mason Blue says, "Hey everyone," and then he says a foreboding word.
Go Aqua.
A&M ain't winning no title. Yeah,
Words that Moen was saying last year about Ohio State next week.
Kenneth Maynor, a member for 4 months. East Carolina, big win at home over Memphis to move to 7-3. Still tied for first in the American and still alive for the CFP. Go Pirates received 4 votes in the AP poll. Hallelujah.
Hey Ken, if you can give us the simple version of what happens in case of a 4-way tie in the American, is there a percentage shot of that East Carolina has like a 35% chance of making it to the American Conference Championship? It's my understanding that the 4 teams that are left aren't playing each other the last 2 weeks. Could be wrong. You know it better, but I would love to know it. Everyone's going Big 12 this year. ACC's like, we'll take your beer, Big 12, and we'll drink it up. Americans like, hey, we're going to have somebody ranked. No, next week we will not. We're going to keep on smacking them down.
Listen, the only rankings that matter are the last rankings. You know, I don't know who is what and what percentage, and the all-state playoff predictor, and it'll show you the path that is necessary to make this possibility happen. I'm not buying any of that. I'm just keep winning. That's all you got to do. Keep winning. As a matter of fact, Kenneth Maynard, keep winning.
Wow, winning. I'm sorry, winning. Oops, winning.
Coffee is for closers. Grab some grape juice, South Carolina. Absolutely great reference, Glengarry Glen Ross. Coffee is closers. You call
I want the
yourself
leads, man. I want the leads.
You call yourself a salesman, you son of a bitch. I ain't got to stay here and listen to this. You're right, because you're all fired. Alec Baldwin's probably his greatest role. And he's only in the movie for like 7 minutes. But it's probably the best 7 minutes of the movie.
He stole that scene for sure.
Yeah.
It's a scene meant to be stolen if you're a good actor.
Yeah. I didn't think he was acting that much. I think it's just the way Alec Baldwin is. He's an asshole.
Hey Bob, curious, is there any smoke around the Brian Dable possibility as a head coach for Penn State?
Really,
I saw it in a couple of places because after he got fired, he was seen wearing a Penn State jersey, and he coached for 1 year under Saban. No idea. I'm just asking whether there's anything there other than people speculating. I want to say it was like a McAfee.
Yeah, well, Pat McAfee, that's a good source.
It's
But
as good as
it's
any other
interesting,
ESPN source.
Speaking of coaches, we heard the rumor 2 weeks ago Mike Locksley was out, and yet again in a Luke Fickell type move, the AD came out and endorsed Mike Locksley and said that they're going to spend even more money next year on putting together a better team. There's I think nobody wants to get in this coaching carousel right now.
Even insurance companies know that when you have a car that's a lemon, you just take it out of the market. You don't try to keep fixing it.
Yeah. Cupcake week for SEC incoming. Can't spell cupcakes without SEC.
It's completely unfair to disparage such great programs as Mercer.
Good evening, says Matt Schnook. Good evening, Matt. Hey, fellers, says Pit Snipe Husker. Hello. Numbskull News says Frogs got run over by someone in a white button-up, black tie, and riding a bicycle. Onward, Christian soldiers. What can we say?
There's going to be a knock coming at your door very soon, Numbskull.
Now I've got that song from the Book of Mormon stuck in my head. Hello. Why is BYU so disrespected by the rankings? Seriously. Because they're in the Big 12.
Yeah, there's no good evidence for why other than, maybe a definition of a good win, right? They have one for sure. But if you look at their averages on FPI-ish things, which the committee looks at, strength of schedule, strength of record, some of them are really high and the worst ones are not really bad. So I don't have a good answer for you other than, the two obvious, Big 12 and another type of bias.
Yeah, and we'll 100% back that up. Big media hates BYU. They don't like Mormons. It's unfair. It ain't right. It is what it is, though. But don't worry. Just ask Notre Dame. You guys wait another 100 years, and eventually people will chill a little bit on that. Gruden at LSU kind of makes sense. If it happens, I think we'll all regret it, although I ain't sure that even Gruden can overcome that administration and institutional buffoonery. Buffoonery is a nice way of saying shit show, which is what it is. I don't think anybody wants it. Listen, if I'm James Franklin, I don't want to work for LSU. Who's in charge?
I think that they could have overcome it every moment, even with the insane launch of their coaching search, if you didn't then basically say, we're going to show you that we won't pay you if we can, around it as a negotiating ploy. And I understand they're trying to do a buyout, but after you already shit the bed, if you then come in and shit the carpet, no one's going to want to come into the room and try to clean it all up.
Unless you're John Gruden. John Gruden would do that.
Or a second, like if you're a smaller coach, right, that doesn't have those same options. If you're a coordinator, you'll take it. If you're an alum, the defense coordinator of the Lions, you'll take it, right? And those guys might be the best long-term play anyway. If you're a lesser G5 school, not our guy at Tulane who's going to have other equal monetary options, they'll do it. But I would be surprised if somebody who's like, I can make $13 million here, or I can make $13 million there, and I'm going to get all these resources, even though normally they would be considered the prime job. With the job that government has done in the narrative, I think it's a stretch. But who knows? It is LSU, right? If anyone's going to get around it, they're one of 4 or 5 schools that can get around the craziness of what they've forced into their search.
Yeah, I have to say this is one of the first coaching carousels where I really am scratching my head on who ends up where. Kenneth Maynard says ECU continuing to win helps BYU. Good win for the Cougars. Great win for the Cougars. They dominated. They need to continue to do that. We are back in the days of running up the score. So you can look forward to that moving forward.
Yes, we are.
No other team has more wins against bowl eligible teams than BYU. Okay, I don't disagree with that, but I think the Big 12 is a very what's the best way to say it? Even conference.
Well, listen, I am on the I mean, I want BYU to not get in right now because BYU and Utah are in front of Miami. But like taking that aside is like objectively, but BYU deserves to be higher than they are, and they're being disrespected. But I do not necessarily. That is one of those stats that it is either really great or means absolutely nothing, because you could have played 6 teams, right, who are all bowl eligible, who are not anywhere in the top 40 or the top 35. So I'm not saying that's what it is. I haven't digested. I'm just responding to that one is potentially a very valid stat. There are other stats I think that validate BYU better than that one.
The Baylor AD put his hand on player and assistant coach back in September, and the schools made them apologize to the AD initially. Yeah, that makes sense. It was only recently, well into November, that he stepped down and apologized.
But not until he was already on, on 2 playoff ranking committee calls as the spokesperson for all of the best on the committee.
Utah AD got banned from sidelines for trying to tackle players of opposing teams in live play. Hey, I can't say anything. I had head coach.
You went to Ohio State.
Yeah, I'm an Ohio State guy, so we just punch players for making interceptions. So, has to do with breaking the Baylor moral code. I'm guessing DUI or similar. Well, if it was DUI, that would be public knowledge. We would know that. My guess is if it's a moral code thing, it's probably to get moral clause to terminate his contract and save a little money. I put a CUSA AD as chair of the CFP. None of their schools have a chance anyway. No favoritism. Well, that's not exactly true, Kenneth, because look, people are looking to poach Conference USA. So there could be a negative bias there.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Look, everyone has a bias. I just think at least try to not appoint somebody who's already, their school is already in the midst of it. That would be great. But let's just start. Between Ward Manuel last year and the Baylor AD this year, we are not in impressive committee chairman territory the first 2 years of the expanded playoff.
Texas should have taken some of that money and hired his Arch Manning's uncles as QB coaches or analysts. They're far too busy making commercials. Texas A&M has only played the bottom half of the SEC, luck of the 16-team conference draw. Other teams should be pissed, but here's the thing. If you're in a 16 or an 18-team conference, it is just the luck of the draw. I mean, people complained last year that Indiana didn't play anybody.
Right.
But people tend to forget Indiana played Washington, who was coming off a national championship game, and played Michigan, who was the defending national champion. There's just years where certain teams are down, and Ohio State had to play Penn State after Penn State lost 3 games. So,
right. But he's not wrong. If you want to look to, hey, why did Texas A&M maybe have this challenge with South Carolina unexpected? Their victories have come through. All of these teams were below like the halfway line of the SEC, but it is luck of the draw. Back in the beginning of the season, Oklahoma, SEC, everyone's like, this is brutal for Brett Venables. He's never going to get through this season. Look at this schedule, blah, blah, blah. Because you looked at it and he was ending with Missouri, a top 20 team, LSU, a preseason top 5 team, right? we get to the end of the season, Missouri's been fine. They're, right outside of the top 25, but their quarterback gets injured, and they're a different team with that, though they put in a great fight this past week. And LSU is a dumpster fire of a program right now in many ways. But beginning of the year, you would have been like, they got a tough draw. So I don't know how you avoid that. And I've been on both sides of that equation with my team, so I understand both sides of the feelings about it. It sucks. The downfall of expanded conferences with uneven scheduling.
Jack Lemon and Ed Harris in that room, and you hardly notice them. What about Arkin? Barely notice Arkin, too. Just a Kevin Spacey's in the room, hellacious cast. And it's just all Alec Baldwin for 7 minutes. If you don't want to sit through, it's a great movie, by the way. It's a great movie. It's got Al Pacino in it as well. But if you don't want to sit through the entire movie, just look up Alec Baldwin's part from Glengarry Glen Ross. ABC, AIDA. Baptist school, my cash is on drinking and dancing. Footloose. We can't play Footloose due to...
I mean, maybe, but then again, what was that name of that coach? It took a while for that kind of stuff to get exposed.
Art Briles.
Yeah.
Art Briles.
Things are a lot better when you're winning.
They are. You don't want to be a team of suckers like this team.
Yeah, Mo, that team sure did suck last night. They just plain sucked. I've seen teams suck before, but they were the suckiest bunch of sucks that ever sucked.
Love the Simpsons Sounders. BYU could have lost to CU, Zona, West Virginia, and Utah. And they could have, but they won. At the end of the day, it's about what the final score is.
Clint, do you want Ogeron State to happen?
No. They're getting Gundy, and they're liking it. He's already got enough orange polos. He can cut the stitching.
Ogeron State, though, sells merch, too, in its own way.
Towtown Hawk says strength of record should be an outlawed phrase and never used again. Yeah, well, who... Yeah. The problem is, what are these metrics? They never explain what the metrics are.
The entire college football playoff committee needs to learn the only thing the ACC has ever done right in college football in the last quarter century. Give us the transparency of the replay room. Show the damn stats. Tell us what they do and what percentage of the vote is influenced by that besides the then human eye test thing. That's what they should do. Billions of dollars rides on it. All of our money supports this. Let us know what the frick the damn rankings are. What are they going to protect the proprietary rankings from a different college football conference that we don't know about? Who's going to steal their data? Like the multiverse is going to have a different way of doing it because they saw what happened in Multiverse 571?
Yeah, maybe the UFO will steal it. But Gruden kind of made it work at a dysfunctional Oakland, then really made it work at a dysfunctional Tampa. So maybe he's perfect for LSU. Yeah, but keep in mind that he made a Las Vegas team as dysfunctional as humanly possible, traded for Antonio Brown, and then just had to cut him. So I wouldn't put too much faith in Gruden. But to be fair, I am a not so big fan of Jay Gruden either. So,
and I still haven't figured out why John Gruden decided to copy his former owner's haircut.
The worst haircut in the world. Can you imagine? He pays for that haircut too. If you guys haven't seen Mark Davis's haircut, just Google Mark Davis haircut.
Are you sure he pays for it? Because all you need is a really good cereal bowl from IKEA and a Flowbee.
Yeah, listen. That's not even a cereal bowl. That's like half a cereal bowl. Like I've seen good bowl cuts. That's a terrible bowl cut. Hello, gents. Got here late. Good to see you, David Sabanash. 25 plus 25. Footloose reference. Absolutely. Stephen Vitt's in the house. In a sense, I agree with Kenneth Maynor about the American being the SEC of the G5. They have more resources compared to the other G5 conferences. It's absolutely true. Pac-12 locked up in litigation still with the Mountain West. If ECU wins out and gets in, give us Texas Tech. Only played them once. ECU beat Texas Tech 40-27 in the 2000 Gallery Furniture Bowl in Houston. Kenneth, old saying, be careful what you wish for. That is not the same Texas Tech from the 2000 Gallery Furniture Bowl, dude. The defense is legit. They can get after it. They can compete with SEC and Big Ten offensive lines. They've done a damn good job competing against Big 12 offensive lines. So Oregon is the only top 10 team without a win against a current top 25 team. They'll get their second chance versus USC. Big game this Saturday at 3:30 on CBS. Oregon I believe they're at USC.
No, it's in Oregon.
Is it in Autzen?
Yeah, the game day is going back there for the second time in like 2 months.
Well, I guess you better figure out how to vote on this thing by Friday, USC. Because otherwise, Big Ten officials are going to start throwing flags like crazy.
By the way, the fact that, and no disrespect, I mean, Oregon USC is a big game. It just is, right? Either way, no matter way you look at it, it's going to be, depending upon what the rankings for the playoff committee come out, it could be as high as a number 7 versus number 15 game, theoretically. But the fact that there's so many cupcake games next week, the next to last week of the season, that there weren't more options for where game day should go is an indictment of college football scheduling. And yes, I realize that you, again, don't know which games may or may not be big beginning of the season. But if you're scheduling out of conference G6 cupcake games the next to last week of the season, and you're essentially getting a bye when everybody else has their life on the line, that is just not smart scheduling for the good of the sport.
I agree with you, but you're never going to get them to get rid of that.
I know, because it just means more.
It just, even now that they've moved to 9 conference games with that 10th A4, you're never going to get them to not schedule that next to last week before rivalry week.
And I will keep calling them a bunch of freaking cupcakes.
I think that's disingenuous to cupcakes.
That's true. Cupcakes are pretty
Cupcakes are a lot firmer. They've got some sweetness on them. This is more like cornbread. It just crumbles. There's no such thing as the eye test. The committee never watches all the games. It would be impossible. You're absolutely right.
I absolutely disagree.
You think they watch every game?
They don't have to, though, because all they need to do, they don't need to worry about like the 13th place team in the Big 12 playing the 14th place team in the ACC at this point of the season, right? They can watch a preponderance of games over the Saturday, Sunday, and the cut downs of all of the games of the 50 most relevant teams to worry about, right? Because, look, Stanford is not being considered for the Big 12, and the only reason, for the College Football Playoff Committee, and the only reason Stanford might factor in is for tiebreakers for the ACC, for strength of record common opponents kind of thing, or the Big 12, all those like 4th and 5th things. So all you need to do is you watch a bunch of games, and then the cut downs of the actual only plays for each of those games are widely available, and I'm sure that they use them. And that's like maybe 15 minutes per game of actual gameplay. And I don't really want them to listen to all of the announcers and their damn opinions. So, yes, I don't think they're watching the results of essentially at max 67 games a week. But between what they can watch on Saturday and then other games they can fill in by literally watching all the key plays and the dynamic of the game in 15 minutes, I think they can have a good idea. Now, whether the people in that room are competent enough to get a good idea is a completely different question. I don't really know that the composition of the committee itself is the wisest way of doing this to begin with. That would be like where I have an issue with the committee, but I think you can get a very good sense of all of it balanced by the metrics as well. and I don't know, I didn't look this last week, Mo, and I don't know if you've checked, but I want to say week 1, for all the things we hate about the BCS2, there are some models out there that run the same crap as if the BCS still existed. And it was pretty close to the top 12, minus the having to accommodate the 4th and 5th conference champions who were not already ranked in the top 12.
Right.
But I think the committee itself is a skeptic. I'm not saying I'm in favor of the committee model at all. All I'm saying is the games that are relevant that you want to see for it, whatever bullshit the eye test is, it is possible to do it. Now, whether they actually do it or not, but it's not like they have to watch every game is 3 hours and they have to do 50 games to do it, is my point.
And here's my disagreement on it. I think the eye test, you have to watch a full game. I don't think you can pick up enough on highlights to determine.
No, I'm saying literally just watching. There's cutdowns that show every single play, not highlights. Every single play, in a 60 minutes of gameplay with the clock running and stuff like that. Essentially the amount of actual full plays is usually like 20 minutes of time or less per game, because so much of it was just the clock running.
Yeah, I would like to believe that was the case with the committee.
Oh, do I think that they're doing it? I'm just saying, is it possible they're doing it?
It's
Two different
possible.
things.
Sure.
Two different things.
Nebraska coordinators rock the Carlin. Good new traditions happening in Lincoln. I don't quite understand the rock the Carlin.
Yes, I am not aware of what you're telling, but let us know what that means. Other than thinking, does it have like rock the Casbah related? I have no idea.
Unless something has to do with George Carlin, and they're just using dirty words. 1-2 says 5+ SEC teams in the CFP is ridiculous. They already have a conference to decide the best SEC team. We need to see who's the best team in the country. Well, I'm sorry, 1-2, but you may not like this, but it just means more in the SEC. And when they get to 16 teams and they get 5+11, buddy, you're going to have 9 teams from the SEC in that playoff. You just are. Can you disagree that you're going to get 5+ SEC teams in the playoffs this year, Brock?
I think it's almost certainly going to be 5. I don't know that it's going to be 6, but I think it's almost certainly going to be 5.
I think there's a possibility they could get 6.
Yeah, I'm hoping for the 2025 season to continue in the chaos path, and therefore some weird things happen where multiple teams in the SEC that are considered to be locks go to 3 losses because Auburn upsets Alabama, or Oregon, Oklahoma gets shocked by Missouri for some reason that I'm not expecting. I don't expect either of those to happen, which based off of my picks record this season means that they're likely to have one of those happen.
Let's break it down. 5 SEC teams. 3 Big Ten teams. I think whoever wins Oregon, USC, and wins out, that's your 3rd Big Ten team. Ohio State and Indiana are in. Then you've got Notre Dame. Notre Dame is going to be in because they're Notre Dame. So there's 9 squads. And then you have a Big 12, an ACC, and a G5. And that's your 12-team playoff.
Most likely. If you were putting money on it, that would probably be the best.
Texas Tech coming out of the Big 12. I think they win that championship game. ACC, I don't know. I think we talked about it before we started. Georgia Tech's got the best chance, right?
They have the clearest path to the playoff, correct? To the ACC championship game. Virginia, I think, needs like a little bit of help from SMU. I don't remember if there's 2 ACC teams that have full control over their thing. I think Georgia Tech does, because they're the only, they're in that position right now to do so. But
so maybe Georgia Tech, but it's open.
Likely. The thing that'll be interesting, Mo, I think, to see is, and I don't know what the playoff committee will look like, but let's just say we get to the last week and BYU is in the 10th spot, right? Not the 11th or 12th, but the 10th spot specifically, or higher. Let's call it 9 or 10. That'll be the interesting part to see, are we consistent year to year in the college football playoff committee thought process? Because in the 10th spot, BYU going against Texas Tech, or if it's Utah in the 10th spot, like if BYU were to falter in one of their last two games. Last year, we were told that if a team was already in the playoff and they lost a game in their conference title, they would not get penalized for that. So if, let's say, BYU comes in and is in the 10th spot and were to lose again to Texas Tech, do they get penalized out? So,
You know,
they gave
with
us the
the
SMU
SMU
theory last year.
No,
That's what they said.
I hear what you're saying. With the SMU Clemson, that was such a crazy ending to that game. But I think they're going to go back and look at that first BYU Texas Tech game.
But I thought that they said ahead of the games that they were not going to penalize teams for being good enough.
I agree with you.
conference
I don't think they're
championship
going to penalize them for that game. I think they're going to penalize them for the first game.
Yeah, so then you're talking about semantics, and if you're a BYU or somebody, you can't you're not going to buy that argument, because if you're already in the 10th seed, you didn't get penalized enough to be out, right?
Yeah, listen, if you're in the Big 12, you need to really be for SEC chaos the next 2 weeks. You have
Well,
to
everybody
have
basically should, unless you're an SEC team, right? Because
I think the Big Ten's not getting 4 teams in. They're
the
just
Big Ten
not.
is not getting 4 teams. The Big Ten may not get 3 teams.
I think if Oregon can win out, or
Oregon will
USC
get in.
can win out.
I don't know but if I looked at the stats. Let's say USC beats Oregon, right,
Yeah.
and wins out. That one win, that will still not be a better win than like Miami. I don't think that they're getting it. I don't think they're leapfrogging Miami if Miami were to win out, as an example, into an at-large one. I think they'll be like the first team out kind of thing, or they'll be 11 or 12 in the first team out. I don't think they have some good wins, but if you look at the and I'm going to look at it right now just because I want to have it in front of me. Like SC and Miami on like strength of record are literally 15 and 16. FPI, they're 10 and 11. Strength of schedule, they're like right close to each other as well. USC has a bigger strength of record, but they're already starting in the college football playoff committee's mind. They're already at least 2 or 3 spots behind Miami, so they would need to do that. I'm just using that as one example.
Sure.
And I don't think Miami's getting in, to be clear, so I'm not even saying that. I'm just asking, will they leapfrog enough teams? Will they leapfrog? It'll be interesting to see what happens with Vanderbilt this week in the college football playoff rankings, because it's hard to find a very good win on their schedule now. And they're ahead of Miami, USC, Michigan. I can't remember if they were ahead of Utah as well. We'll see what happens to them on their bye week. I'm old enough to remember, and I'm only a year old, when Miami got passed by somebody on their bye week for beating Mercer.
Yeah, I remember that too. I'm just saying, if you're a Big 12 fan, if you're a fan of a Big 12 team, if you're a fan of an ACC team, the ACC is going to be a little bit harder. But Miami, you mentioned it, Miami possibly could still get in without winning the ACC championship as an at-large. You've got to hope that there is just chaos in the SEC the next 2 weeks.
But if you're a Big Ten fan, you probably want SEC chaos too, just because of the narrative, right? Not necessarily because it's going to get more of your teams in, though. Who knows? Maybe it does. I think it's just the rest of the college football world basically toggles back and forth between let's all gang up in unison against the Big Ten to let's all gang up in unison against the SEC to let's gang up in unison against both of you.
And I'm in favor of the AQ model. So for me, the more SEC teams get in, it just solidifies the point of an AQ model.
Yeah, I'm all in for the 24 at this point with the AQs and then enough at-larges for the SEC to be happy with gluttony.
Texas shouldn't get in. 3 losses with 1 coming to a team with 7 losses, no bowl game. Here's something we haven't talked about. Talk about eye tests. Let's talk about the brand. We know that the committee likes brands.
Mm-hmm. They do. They like their committee, the impartial committee powered by ESPN, who likes brands for TV ratings, as all of them like ratings, but remember that ESPN controls the playoffs, so they have all of the games other than a couple that they farm out to TNT World. I think that they like brands. But again, I don't think Miami's doing it. I'm not politicking for Miami. But in a scenario where it's Texas versus Miami and Texas has 3 losses and Miami has 2 losses and their shared opponent is Florida, how do you justify it?
I don't know. But if
they
it comes
will.
down,
My point is that they
will.
will.
They will.
They will. Somehow or another, it would happen.
And
you can do the same thing with the, I only use that one. I only use Alabama to a lesser degree, but Alabama's a different position because they're going to probably still be in the SEC title game, and it's a whole different world we're talking about.
And that's why I brought
up shared opponents where there's either direct head-to-head or a shared common foe. In the case of Texas and Miami against Florida, there's probably similar examples in different ways for BYU and Utah and Vanderbilt and SC, all these kind of schools. I'm just using the one I know best, but not because I believe it's going to come down to that or that Miami
right.
is,
And when you were talking about Miami versus USC, that's another situation where the SEC, the USC brand versus the Miami brand. Which brand do they favor?
Right. Well, based off of the TV ratings this year, who has the peak ratings, it would actually be eyeballs wise. It's been Miami versus USC.
Sure.
This year,
they've had
overall,
much better games.
USC is like a freaking historic blue blood. I'm not even trying to sit there and say that those two programs are the same historically.
But I mean, you had Florida early in the season, Florida State early in the season.
Yeah, Notre Dame, better games.
Notre Dame early
like
in
that,
the season.
Right? For sure.
Check me on this, folks, but Big and Big 12 teams have done just fine against the SEC in bowl games over the past decade. Don't tell SEC fans that, because those bowl games don't matter unless they win the bowl games, and then they won't shut up about it. David Sabinosh says at least UVA will be undefeated this weekend. Hey, man, great season by UVA.
Amazing.
Regardless of what happens from here on out, great season.
From hot seat to hot seat in a different form, right? Like Virginia, you're going to be paying for your coach and the guy who is on every hot seat in the summer. I don't know if there's been a year where all the prognosticators have prognosticated as poorly overall as this season. Some have been dead on, right? Billy Napier, what have you, on the coaching carousel. But others have, whether it's quarterbacks to teams, and we're clearly guilty as hell on some of those as well. I just can't remember. Maybe it's recency bias of its own part. I just can't remember so much being wrong.
Edward Wilson says, I thought Big Noon was the Buckeyes and Rutgers. I believe Buckeyes and Rutgers game is at noon, but Big Noon kickoff is actually in Cincinnati. Because they have the Cincinnati BYU game later that evening. If they had the problem for Fox is Oregon and USC can contractually don't have to play each other at noon. There's supposed to be no 9 a.m. start times for those West Coast teams. So that game got moved to CBS at 3:30. Therefore, they couldn't do Big Noon kickoff at Autzen, so they went with Cincinnati BYU, which I think is a much better game for that pre-show than Ohio State and Rutgers.
Yeah, just sucks that Cincinnati lost in terms of that setup for them, but it's still an important game. It's a huge game for BYU. I don't remember whether there are still paths for Cincinnati to make it. I think they're still in the 2-loss bucket, so maybe there is.
Spoilers. Spoiler alert, Pit Snipe Husker says, I must concede that I am okay with Ohio State getting a larger cut because they are the big premier program that has to play the most noon games that we all hate. I'm the only guy who likes noon games. I really am. I watch my games and I can gamble and watch all my rest of my games. So
I think if you were going to more games and had like a regular tailgate routine, or you did like morning golf or whatever, it fits your lifestyle better.
Yeah, and people in Columbus, Ohio, they love those noon games. I mean, as much fans say, hey, we want more night games, those aren't people going to the games necessarily. Because I'm telling you what, if you just want to eat, go to the parking lot at Ohio Stadium at like 6 a.m. for a big noon kickoff, and
It's all
just walk around and eat.
It's all relative. Noon games in Miami are freaking hell on earth, especially in
Yeah.
the beginning of the season.
Yeah, when it's all humid.
Yeah, like 3:30 isn't all that great either because it usually rains for sure at 4 o'clock. But I guess it just depends upon where you are. Right now, a noon game isn't that bad for South Florida. It's actually gorgeous out. But August, September, early October, gross.
Yeah, I will go ahead and say this, that if you like breakfast foods, show up at 6 a.m. The weather's nice and cool at that point. It's not overly humid. People will feed you. As long as you're wearing Ohio State gear, people will feed you. Pancakes, Belgian waffles. I can't eat sausage and bacon anymore, but I used to be able to eat sausage and bacon, and I really enjoyed it. Yeah, breakfast food for pre tailgating. Amy S says Mark Harlan, Utah AD, has served on the CFP committee in the past, so maybe his experience made sense when joining mid-season.
I think that's fair, and I'm not even impugning their integrity. It would probably optically be better if you weren't adding somebody whose team was in the mix, even if you had that experience. Like obviously they're deciding that outweighs one versus the other.
Stephen Vitt says right now I don't trust MAC leadership to make any good moves. The longer we wait, the more I want to join the Sun Belt. Stephen, I'm sorry, the Ohio Department of Higher Education is not going to let any Ohio MAC teams out. You're gonna have to fight them. You're gonna have to fight them, file a lawsuit or something. But you can't fight City Hall, and Chancellor Duffy does not want to let anybody leave. That's the reason that Toledo is not in the Mountain West Conference. Sean says the playoffs should never have expanded past 4, and expanding it past 12 is going to get worse.
Yeah, I don't agree with that, personally. The college football playoff, even at 12 or 16, is still the lowest percentage of either pro or college sports teams in their respective playoffs in North America. Even at 24, it's just in line.
Imagine Georgia Tech getting boat raced by Georgia and then wins the ACC. Would 2 G6 teams get in? I just don't think there's a strong enough second G6 team.
No, you needed Duke, and even Duke as a possibility was just more interesting conversation because by definition, if Duke were to get to the ACC championship game, they would have had to have beaten a couple of more schools and then a third in the championship game. That would have improved their strength of record and strength of schedule. And as great a story as JMU is, they have really terrible, for obvious reasons, strength of schedule type things. Though they played Louisville close, they lost by 14, but they still would have lost to Louisville by 14.
Jacober Cat with a $10 super chat. Wild Ute Swan needs a fairy princess Ute outfit like Marlon Wayans in White Chicks. When you want girl so bad, you ask her on a sushi date, hoping to try her salmon belly while you offer her a tuna roll. I've never sat
I don't even
through
know
White
what you're
Chicks.
drinking.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you. I've never sat through White Chicks. Yeah, I remember the previews of the movie being on TV and going, how would anybody fall for that? Like, I mean, they would all have to have like Mr. Magoo vision to think that those were two white females. But hey, thanks for spoiling it for me, Jacober Cat.
30 years later,
Professor,
he's upset.
Without knowing precisely what the danger is, would you say it's time for our viewers to crack each other's heads open and feast on the goo inside?
Yes, I would, Ken.
Yeah, spoiler alert, Jacober Cat. I was just getting ready to watch White Chicks. I was looking for on Netflix. White Chicks. Jacober Cat. If Miami and the Irish both finish 10-2, then the Canes should get in because of the head-to-head.
They won't. I don't think that they will. Notre Dame's best win will be USC, likely to be behind Miami, even if both schools went out. More likely than not, we don't know. It's possible USC could jump Miami, but they are at least 2 spots behind right now. We'll see what happens not tomorrow night, Tuesday night.
And you know what the worst part is? Notre Dame is going to use the excuse they're going to use for Notre Dame, Ed, is they're going to use Notre Dame has better losses. They lost to Miami and Texas A&M. They're literally going to use Miami as they had a better loss. They lost to Miami.
That is true. Fortunately, SMU popped back up into the top 25 on the AP poll. I don't know if that means that they'll show up at all on the playoff rankings. I would tend to doubt it, but that at least helps a little bit as Louisville also then drops off, right? So.
SMU never played scheduled game against Clemson last season. That's true. They did not play in the regular season. BYU has played scheduled game against Texas Tech this season. Apples and oranges. I fully agree with you, but I'm going to say this again. They're going to go back and look at that first Texas Tech BYU game. If it comes down to, assuming BYU loses the championship game to Texas Tech. Let's see here. We got about 10 more minutes, guys. 10 more minutes. Anything must be read would have to be a super chat. Trying to get through some of these comments here. If BYU is in 10th CFP spot or better after regular season, but drops out because of a loss in Big 12 championship game, then it rewards teams for not getting into the conference championship game. Bad precedent.
Well, not this year necessarily, because it wouldn't be an at-large from the Big 12 or the ACC theoretically, but potentially, yes, for sure.
Just imagine 1-2 when they make the 30 for 30 on ESPN, they'll call it bad precedent. They're talking about the 12-team college football playoff. What if I told you that a Miami team with 2 losses that beat Notre Dame was left out in favor of Notre Dame? Bad precedent. Texas is out. They're not going to get in. Okay, Sean. I hope you're right. I really do. But
I think you're accurate about it. What should happen, I don't have the confidence that it will happen.
I don't trust the playoff committee to say, hey, we want to have a Texas school in there. We want to have the University of Texas in there.
Especially if Texas, in order for them to even have a shot, right, they're going to have to slay Texas A&M. So they'll even have more fodder because they will theoretically be knocking out their 3rd ranked team.
The way I see it with ESPN, with the SEC in their pocket, all the rest are going to take it in the bunghole again. But you know what? Yes. Here's the best part, Stormy Cyclone. Whoever, you're a Big 10 homer, you're an ACC homer, you're a Big 12 homer, we got to win a national championship. We got to deny the SEC the national championship this year. I'm going to be rooting Big 12. As long as they're not playing my team, I'm going to be rooting Big 12, Big 10, ACC, G6. I'm going to be rooting for all of them and rooting against every SEC team. If we can make sure the SEC does not win a national championship for 3 years in a row, it's my understanding that Paul Feinbaum will molt his skin and swim back to Ecuador with the rest of the iguanas. So, by all means, we've got to make sure that happens.
I want to do a parlay where Paul Feinbaum leaves and gets out of our way from his SEC ESPN job, and then loses the election that he's going to run for, because that would be literally fantastic. And I know he'll get a job again right after that, but it'll be awesome forever to talk about how he couldn't win.
I was overjoyed when the Iliad foreshadowed. Now, see, the Iliad, I know that. There shall be a day when sacred Troy shall be destroyed, and I smiled reading. The Trojan king put his lips to the hands of the man who destroyed his city.
I love the fact that half the chat, understandably, is going to have to chat GPT this shit. Including me, because I remember the Iliad, but I definitely don't remember all of it to that degree.
Put his lips to the hands of the man who destroyed his city. I think he's talking about Paris, but is Paris the one? Yeah, I might have to go back and look some of that up too, Jacobra Cat. But I do remember I read the Iliad and the Odyssey. So
I did read them both as well, but if I just read the Trojan King, I would have thought it was some reality show that I missed on some network.
Absolutely. In fact, it sounds better in British.
Well, that changes pretty much fucking everything. Count me in.
Thank you for the super chat, Jacobra Cat. Big game coming this weekend, Yale versus Harvard. Any chance for you to put it on the big freaking picks? I haven't made the picks yet. I'll have to look. I might.
There's not a ton of great
If
games.
there's
that
not
you
a
couldn't
ton
find
of
a
great
spot.
games, yeah, I might. Of course, I'll be rooting for Yale. Go Yale. There was a hog on a spit in the parking lot in Morgantown on my only visit. I shit ye nay. It was delicious. Absolutely. You want to go to a great party, party town atmosphere for a tailgate? It is Morgantown, West Virginia. Go to the Mountaineer Mall. You find people partying, if it's still there. I think it's still there. The Mountaineer Mall. There's people partying there. You go down on campus. You see lots of guys with the 30 rack of the Natty. Looks like an Arnold Schwarzenegger carrying a big bazooka around with that 30 rack of Natty Light. It's good times, man. Good times.
Just
Good
don't drive
people.
your fraternity. Just don't drive your RV up an icy road on Fraternity Row. May or may not have been part of a crew that did that once and suffered the consequences.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of driving in Morgantown because there's a lot of weird one-way streets that just turn nowhere. But yeah, no, great people in Morgantown, West Virginia. Great party atmosphere. Highly recommend it. Even if you're not a West Virginia fan, man, just show up. Listen, all you need to know is eat shit pit, and they'll give you beer, they'll give you food. They know how to cook. Stephen Vitt says I'm aware of that mowing long process and all that. Yeah, it's going to be a long process, or you're going to have a change in the leadership that's going to get Duffy out of the ODHE. White Chicks is absurd and funny as hell. Well worth the watch. I don't know. Jacobra Cat spoiled it for me when we talked about tuna rolls and sushi. Or was it sushi rolls and something else? But
You have to experience it. If you can put your disbelief on Star Wars type things, you can imagine them fooling really stupid people. We do have this guy in, college football related. You do remember a player who had an imaginary girlfriend, right?
Well, she wasn't imaginary. She was real. She just happened to be a man with a woman's voice.
Exactly. Now just add makeup.
It's not imaginary. Just pretend. Not even pretend. I don't even know. Poor Manti Te'o. How could you fall for that? Mullen, Irish bias for the ratings, KML. Big 12 should cancel its championship game if the CFP committee punishes either team in its championship game this year. I think everybody's going to eventually cancel their championship games.
If their second team is in 10 or higher, I agree with that. If they're not, then if they're 13th or 11th or 12th, then you weren't really in yet because you already knew.
Leaving on a jet plane. I hope I can hear that when Feinbaum goes. Yale is 9-0. Harvard is 7-2. Rock's cat is still in heat. She's in the background yelling.
I mean, I try to hit mute fast.
It's more of a grudge that Morgantown can out Lincoln Husker fans. We got to step our game up. There you go. We'll end it on that. That's good. We talked tailgating. We talked football. We talked Big Ten private or public capital. I'll get that right eventually. And now it's time to talk about our favorite part of the show. Last call. What's your last call tonight, Rock?
Last call. There are some very big games this week. I hope that they don't get overwhelmed by talking about public capital deals. But I have a feeling for some of us and some of you, it may be that way. I do want to let everyone know that my partner in crime over here will be coming over onto CFB Express with Miami Flow on Thursday night. I just put the link to the channel in the chat, and we're going to be talking about who is really wide receiver you and how do they get there, and among probably random other things that come up. So a special episode on Thursday night, moment over on CFB Express, and it should be good as he joins me and Flow.
Absolutely. I will be on here again this week on Wednesday at 8 with Becky Go Huskies and Sergeant Pickles, talking our takes on the latest in college football on The Take at 8 p.m. And then I'll be joining, like you said, over on Thursday, discussing why Ohio State is wide receiver U. Sorry, LSU. Consistency is key, my friends. Consistency is key. So I look forward to being over on CFB Express and doing that. I don't know what Nathan's schedule is this week, so I will see you Wednesday here, Thursday there, Friday here, Saturday screaming at my TV because I missed another parlay for half a point. But my last call for this week is, listen, man, don't chase it. Don't chase it. I spent way too much time yesterday and way too much money chasing it. Sometimes you lose $50. Don't give them another $50 to chase $100. Just let it go, guys. Let it go.
Listen to the man.
Let it go. Try and keep your head above water. If you're not keeping your head above water, you're not doing it right. Don't chase it. For myself, for Rock, I want to thank everybody who joined us tonight. I want to especially thank Kenneth Maynor, who's been a member for 4 months. Thank you, Kenneth. Tawtown Hawk with the Footloose reference. Jacobra Cat with the great literary bounce back between White Chicks and the Iliad. Those go together like cream and vinegar. Thank you for that, Jacobra Cat, and making me laugh my ass off. We will catch you guys next Sunday. Until then, have a good week and peace out.